Now we look at Dread Mob. So we have Nick Roberts Moore. So Nick Roberts Moore did end up going 3-1-1. So he did end up having to deal with a tie. But I like the fact that he was playing Dread Mob and playing it a little bit of a different way. So he was playing in London as well. Sorry, in the United Kingdom as well. I said London, sorry, I mean that. In the United Kingdom as well in England. Yes, and this one was the UK style TC terrain. So I'm going to show you guys if you guys haven't seen. I believe I had the UK style TC terrain up here. Okay. If you haven't seen UK style TC before, here's how this terrain roughly looks. This isn't the backpack mission pack. I don't have this one for this event, but there's another one I had just so people can actually see the layouts. If you're American and you've never seen them, you want to put on GW terrain. A little bit different, like shooting angles, maybe a little bit more open than you might be used to. A lot of L's. So just be aware this is the kind of terrain that he was playing on for the most part when we're looking at it. So some people say WTC is too dense for you to play big vehicles and things. I think UKTC seems to have like a moderate balance where people seem to bring Lehman Russes and battle tanks and big stuff. So I think you could play Dreadbot more likely in UKTC/GW terrain than WTC terrain, to make that clear. I've never made that clear enough, I think. So let's take a look at his list real quick before we look at his path to victory. So we have Dreadbot making appearance again on the success side of victory. So we have one Big Mek, and like we were saying before, the Big Mek actually does work for UKTC. Brian Sepp showed that to everybody when he brought two of them in with battle wagons, just because as we showed their terrain. And can I show that? Yeah, again. There are these places where it looks like, hey, people would want to stage up. Let's say a different mission pack where they're usually closer here. Sorry, guys. So let's say right in this middle objective, right? The Big Mek would actually help where if you're staging coming right out of your deployment zone, you're staging in that middle objective where the L shape is. When it's the wall time to go, you can move through that middle terrain, and you can actually move through people for the most part are going to line up against the wall, so you can't fight them. You can move through them if you have to actually pressure people off the middle in a way that you wouldn't be able to typically with the new rules of engagement. We're not new rules, but for the established rules of engagement with how I can stage off an inch off the wall, you stage on the other side of the wall, inch off the wall. Now we just simply can't fight each other. That kind of bypasses that using the Big Mek. I love that. And it gives the boys access to the button, right? Shout out to that. We have 3 Big Mek with shock attack guns. One of them would get finder goggles, so we know what's coming here with the Lootas bombs, right? Boss Snickra, a Mek, and then 2 war bosses, followed by 1 Zodgrod Waaaghtaktiks. I will probably never play Dreadmob without Zodgrod Waaaghtaktiks, in my humble opinion. I do like that we actually have some war bosses on here. It seems like people just decided we were just want some more good old fashioned crumping, and nothing wrong with that. As for Boss Snickra, when you're dealing with Dreadmob, sorry, I'm kind of dry. One of their issues is they're typically kind of slow, right? Because Gretchin aren't really fast. Let's say if you did go for vehicles, our walkers, they're not necessarily fast. Lootas are, the DACA support, and they're not really moving. So nothing in our detachment allows us to be fast, right? We're not even too reliant on transports. Therefore, having something like Zodgrod helps a lot for scouting, and then having something like Snickrot for your scoring potential, either early game and or late game, really does make a difference. I'm actually starting to decide to choose to put Snickrot maybe on my list once again for Dreadmob. We'll see, but I've already been trying to experiment it because I've realized that the more I play Dreadmob, like, hey, I could take advantage of maybe loan up a little more and uppy downy scoring potential. Well, what I thought was kind of interesting here is how he had a basic mech. Whenever you see a basic mech on a list without, let's say a Titanic unit to really support, you can most likely just assume that the player is deciding I'm going to stick him in a battle wagon and then go and score secondaries with him later. It does make the battle wagon a bit better at shooting, right? So you do get your DACA wagon. Hitting on 4s is a significant difference for the volume of shooting it gets. But for the most part, it's kind of more about scoring secondary. So you can see he's another scoring secondary unit. So in a way, he went MSU style alongside of all the DACA style. So it's a bit different, right? Similar to what we were looking at with Warhorde, which a lot of little units, but in the same case, this is more of DACA maybe, right? With a bit of combat. So combined arms, as we like to say. 2 trucks, 2 bricks of 20 boys. I love to see 20 boys. And then 6 Gretchin units. Make sure I didn't mess this one up. Make sure because I was like, boy, I'm pretty sure his list was also like where the Grot love at or something like that. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 battle line Gretchin units. Love to see that go, boys. If you're playing Dread Mob, I do think you need to take advantage of the Dread Mob detachment rule of battle line Grots. I've been playing with a bunch of bricks of them. You can play with a bunch of 10-man units of them, whatever, 11-man units of them, whatever you do. I do advise bringing at least 5 units of these. He went for the full 6. Then we have the battle wagon for the bricks of Boyz, of course, the Big Mek boys and the Warboss. 2 5-man units of flash kits. I love flash kits. Like I've been saying, 5-man units are exceptional. And then we have the 3 trucks, Lootas trucks. Lootas trucks. Sorry, the Lootas that I think maybe went inside of trucks. So I've been doing that since. Shout out to Mr. Jim Jones right here. Mr. Jim Jones. Yeah, Mr. Initiative. What's up, homie? So I've actually been doing this, but with 1 unit where you put them inside the trucks. Now, some people might say, well, you can put them in strategic reserves. You can just stage them in turn. They can walk out. Yes, of course, you can stage them in terrain. They just walk out. But some people do have indirect, right? Some people do have minor indirect. You can pick up Lootas. They're very soft. But on UKTC terrain, like we were just showing you, right, you can see how these actually work really well for coming in from reserves. Yet they also work really well for if you stage a truck in one of these L-shaped terrains, they simply drive out of it, disembark, and then the Lootas have open a line of fire to these different objectives, as these objectives can be a little bit more open, as you can see from here, right? As you can see, I like to actually put Lootas inside of trucks for a similar reason, just because if I did do it, which I'm not sure if he did, if he, but I assume he might have. If you do put Lootas in trucks, at least one of them, it does really help you gain line of sight earlier in the game or just in different objectives. Then maybe you're not able to with reserves at the moment. I do like that he has rockets on all of them. The game's pretty elite infantry heavy, so having just flat 3 damage, having a blast access, I'm all in favor of that as well. And then Storm Boys, just 1 unit of Storm Boys. I've been cutting down to 1 unit of Storm Boys when I'm playing Dread Mob too, just because you have so many Gretchin, right? So many Gretchin that anything that's not just simply far away, the Gretchin are kind of doing it, and then you're kind of incorporating Nick Rod or Zod, so they can maybe. So shout out to Nick for this one. Shout out to our sponsors, the Baron of Dice, as they helped us do our Waaaghtaktiks dice. So shout them out. Check them out in the description. 5% off in the discount because nobody likes taxes. And shout out to Baron of Dice. They allow us to do our paint competition. So thank you very much to them. Let's take a look at his path to victory. As he did go 3-1-1, but he did have an interesting path. So I just wanted to cover it anyways because Dread Mob ain't easy to play, boys. So we have his first matchup. He went into Dark Angels, Gladius Task Force. We have Azrael, a lieutenant with combi weapon, and then Lionel Johnson. We have an intercessor squad followed by an assault intercessor squad, a brick of blade guard veterans, 2 bricks of deathwing knights, a terminator squad, a gladiator lancer, inner circle companions, a scout, and a scout squad. Inner circle companions are everywhere. Luckily, I think orcs just straight up have volume, right? Like we always like to talk about around here. Volume are a key to victory as an orc player for you to just respect and understand that. I know big high damage things are really cool, like on a Death Dread trying to punch you with those, 6 to 7 punches with their claws. But for the most part, you're usually just looking for volume in life, just because it helps bypass all these durability aspects that a lot of different armies have. Luckily, Space Marines have low toughness. I know these guys are -1 to wound, but they're still low toughness and not amazing armor save. Just a 3-up armor save, which we live to get past. Another thing here is Dread Mob does actually give you answers for something like Deathwing Knights. Now, you can't actually, in this case, you're not using your mechs or your walkers for that, but something to keep in mind when you're going into Deathwing Knights and or Terminators is when they decide, and they're going to decide at some point to simply walk until those objectives, this is the time of the Overwatch for your Lootas, right? So for the most part, you're like, hey, when I'm shooting at these guys, I only have -1 AP. I'm playing with Lootas. What is going on? They get cover. They can Armor of Contempt. That is why you must understand that in the movement phase, when you declare Overwatch on this unit, they cannot pop Armor of Contempt because Armor of Contempt is in the shooting phase, right? So you can actually allow these guys to be taking proper 3-up saves instead, 4-up saves to your rockets if it's the actual Get Finder Goggles unit. So there's ways that you can kind of get around a little bit of their durability and take advantage if they just want to stand on the objective and just take the pain. So if they just want to do that and check you, then if they want to chin check, they want to be chin checked by you, then go ahead and give that to them. Just do it in an intelligent way. Of course, we like the shock attack guns for their -4 AP to really help us with that. Just know that you're going to have to be prepared as an orc player to deal with Lionel Johnson, Terminators, things like that. They're just commonly all over the place. It's a reason why I like Dread Mob. Dealing with Lionel Johnson, right? Being able to say, hey, Grots, reactive move, haha, jump in the way is something that is just irreplaceable when you actually get to that point. you know, or these Blade Guard veterans as well. So having screens, having a bunch of MSU play, and then having shooting potential, something players are not used to dealing with orcs, does take quite the finesse though, guys. Something that I must stress. That as you're playing Dread Mob, it's a Veneris finesse heavy list because you're not necessarily killing and back breaking like a Warhorde. He does have two 20-man units of Boyz here, but 20-man units of Boyz aren't like just chopping through Lionel Johnson, right? Of course he can get lucky, but it's more about what is he killing and taking advantage of, scoring primary, scoring and just delaying this person and killing as much as he can. So in this one, he put 100 points up just because he just has so many units, guys. So many units, so much OC. I'm sure he can just shut things down for that get. Then we go to his second matchup. He goes into the Annihilation Legion. So this is like they're fighting. This is like their fight. Oh, I just had a brain fart. I'm pretty sure for this detachment so I have Annihilation Legion. The other one, so Annihilation Legion is, this one gives you reroll charges. If you were watching the live stream earlier, we were talking about the other Necron detachment. That was +1 to hitting, but led by characters. I should have mentioned that. So for this one, this is like their melee kind of hope to fight you. They have the Destroyer Cult, which are essentially the Necron destroyers, and then their flayed ones. So they can reroll the charge, and if you're below half strength, they get +1 in addition to that. So this is going to be mostly in your face pressure melee. We have a Catan the Nightbringer. We have Scorpek Lords. We have 3 of them, followed by Transcendent Catan. We have Annihilation Barge, a Doomsday Arc, very respectable shooting, good volume, flat damage 4 blast on their main cannon with -3 and strength 14, I believe. 3 units of flayed ones. These guys got twin linked. Just imagine kind of choppas for volume of punches. And I think they get to infiltrate. Which is crazy, right? Crazy. Flayed, you know, that it can really do a lot of damage here as an orc player. We have a Locust Destroyer followed by a Ophidian Destroyer. So these are like deep striking destroyers, kind of fast, not as hard hitting. And then 3 3-man units of Scorpek destroyers, followed by a Triax Stalker. So we have, I think I'll pull these guys up. So the Scorpek Lord's T7 with 7 wounds, a 4 up invuln, 3 up armor save. He gives the unit lethal. And then also when he ends a charge, he makes you take mortal wounds. He does have some respectable fighting, nothing too amazing. It's strength 10, -33 damage with 4 attacks. And then 8 attacks on that. But the real kicker here is the destroyers giving you the ability to actually pop devastating wounds. So they're giving it to him as well. And then it's just volume at this point, right? So we have when this model makes an attack, when this unit makes an attack, you get to reroll hit rolls of 1. And if you made a charge move, you can reroll the hit roll instead. So you guys are hitting on 3s, but they're re-rolling the entire hit roll, and then they're getting lethals as well as that, and they're getting lethals and devastating. And each of these guys has 4 attacks for strength 7, -2 to damage, on top of, you know, the strats that they actually get on top of this, right? Like if they're actually shot at in the shooting phase, they can make a normal move, so they have like their version of Blood Surge as well. It's something that you should point out. And then they can actually pile in 6 inches as well, so that helps them with at least the flayed ones move a little bit more involved in that case. And then they can activate the reanimation protocol when they've destroyed an enemy unit. Yes. So yeah. So it is a totally different way to play Necrons. Because normally Necrons are playing like a hyper tech, like KG kind of game. So really surprising there. Probably if you're not used to it. So I can see how you can time there. 78-point time game right there. So then we go into his third game, where he goes into Death Guard. So Death Guard is the menace right now. Let's see what the version of Death Guard we have here. We have Typhus, Biologist Putrefier, a Foul Blightswan, a 10-man Brick of Plague Marines, 2 units of 5-mans, a Cultist, 1 unit of Death Shroud Terminators, a Poxwalker, 2 Bloat Drones, 2 Plagueburst Crawlers, 2 Rhinos, a Beast of Nurgle, some Nurglings, and then 2 War Dog Brigands. So this guy luckily didn't have the potent max Death Guard Terminator bricks running around. Always keep in mind that this 10-man unit is built in fight first, critical 5+ lethal. They have good flamer overwatch with their flamer, with their character, and then their built-in weapons from their actual character like unit. Like right here, we have Plague Purers built into it. So just respect that as an orc player. They're going to be trapped inside of a rhino. So hard for you to actually get to them and like crack it. That's where Dread Mob actually helps as well, right? You can actually pop the rhino, and then when those guys try to make it up the field, you can overwatch them and deal with them in that way. And that's another thing that I really like about Dread Mob, is knowing that a lot of these armies are going to have making you pay additional CP when you get within range for their, you know, their Vect Aura, making you have to deal with Death Guard and their contagions and their stacking defensive buffs. Dread Mob feels it gives you more answers for all these things. With the reactive moves, feels like gives you answers for other melee pressure armies as well. So in this case, having a bunch of damage to weapons and going against to a bunch of pretty much very slow Space Marine armies feels pretty good. You do have the floated bloat drones, but again, we have Dread Mob, right? We have big shells for bigger gets. Even the Big Mek with the Boyz can end up kind of choosing lethal and just kind of chewing through this, as a war boss can almost do it by himself. So having the Big Mek involved in there, and also the Big Mek has flat 3 damage, which is something we really like to see. Having 2 war bosses in this list for your 20 boys really helps. So if you're stacking those, -2 to hits, having shooting, so makes it so you can actually kill these Nurglings. Luckily, only has 1 unit of them. And of course, it comes down to how is this person allocating their Plague Burst Crawler indirects? Is he actually killing your scoring units? Yet when you have 6 Gretchin units, how much how much is he really killing them, right? It did surprise me. I should double check, make sure Robert didn't have a brick, but Robert really didn't have the 20-man unit of Grots. Like, I just triple checked just in case anybody was wondering. He was running Grot with Zod with simply a 10-man unit of Grots. So I should point out there is a chance that he was sticking Zodgrod with the 10-man unit of Grots into a truck, scouting forward and then disembarking. If you're wondering if that works, yes, it does, because Zod will give the dedicated ability to the truck, because the scout keyword to the truck, because the truck is a dedicated transport. So you can't do it to any other transports, only dedicated ones, which are simply the orc truck. So Zod can do that. That'd be a cool little tech thing to do. 100-point win there. I'm just have a feeling Nick just really outplayed him, because Deathguard do still have some answers to Dread Mob. Having a lot of bodies in OC really does help, though, because everything of value has to come out to kill him, and then you can simply respond. And they're pretty much they have nothing to do with Lootas once Lootas to get out of the trucks and start shooting them. They just have to take the damage and die, and then the Lootas get indirect fired. So in his 4th game, he ended up going into the Thousand Suns with the double Mutilex Vortex beast. Or is that what this is? Yeah, it sounds like it. So we have T-Suns still making their appearance. So even though T-Suns got nerfed into dust, they're still around just because they're so potent and killy. So we have Ahriman on Disc of Zeech, an Exalted Sorcerer, another Exalted Sorcerer, and 2 and 3 Infernal Masters, Magnus the Red, a 1-2 units of 3 units of Rubric Marines of just basic 5-man unit, 2 Mutilex Vortex Beasts, Occultist, and then a Zangor Enlightened. Gosh dang, guys, this list is so elite, and the fact that this person can still run this list and just play it like that is just outrageous. Their double movements and everything just being able to be so killy must be just so effective on here. One thing as an orc player that you really like is pressure. So maybe more like the truck MSU spam like we've seen would be more of a thing. But just giving him a bunch of bodies is something that Thousand Suns can really much deal with, right? Their rubrics have flamers. Their rubrics have devastating potential. They really just deal with the fact that you have all these bodies and not like any transports to deal with inside of them. So they're choosing their engagements and just kind of blowing you away. So normally you're like, well, I have stuff that I can kill these things. Yes, but because they can choose their engagements means that they're killing you first, and then they're kind of just picking your apart and dwindling you, which is one of the weaknesses I've seen to Dread Mob as well. If you're playing into like Hypercrypt Necrons, and they're playing against like a Silent King with let's see, a group of boats around you or a monolith near you. The fact that you can choose your engagements against Dread Mob and kind of shoot away our assets, just like kind of with other orc detachments, but more so in Dread Mob, it hurts because we can't really run around and punch you off where you're at once you're staged up. We kind of have to readjust to try to shoot you again. So in this case, them picking their engagements and T-Suns and shooting you, and then you having to re-engage them again and then running around shooting you again, means that they're just kind of dwindling or break you apart. So you can see it was a tough loss there. Then we go into his because you really just want to pressure Thousand Suns, right? So you're wondering how to do it. The truck spam works really well to them because they can't really pop your trucks, and then they don't have like a combined arms aspect to them. All they have is Magnus that can do that. So let's see. Then we have into his last game. So his last game, he goes Adepta Sororitas with the Bringers of Flame. So we have the Canonist, a Dialogus, and then Morgan Vol, followed by 1 Sisters of Battle unit, 2 Emulators, 3 Castigators, 1 unit of Dominions, and then 2 Exorcists. Love how annoying Exorcists are. Paragon Warsu, 2 units of Seraphim. So very cool that this sisters list isn't like bringing, I guess, the what's this thing? I'm having a brain fart. How am I having this? The Triumph of St. Catherine. Gosh, I don't know. I'm so dumb. I have been seeing a lot of these emulators, triple castigators and Exorcist, sorry, all over the field. It seems like Sisters of Battle, if you're going to going into them, just expect they're going very heavy on their cross firing of tanks and support fire from each other with just some little like units all over the battlefield to kind of help them shoot. This is what you should expect. Sisters are one of those other armies that you do just need to pressure as well and hold them back. If you let them push you back with their little cheap units and dropping flamer girls down and whittling you away and then shooting you as hard as they can with their miracle dice, as an orc player, then you're just getting demolished. So MSU is the name of the game into Sisters. If you're too valuable, then they can try to just focus fire you. They hate when you're in a bunch of battle wagon spam, a bunch of truck spams. They don't really like that. Sure, can they pop one? Yes, but then the other ones are still getting down the field. That's why something like a Big Mek would actually work in this case. So he did have a Big Mek, he did have a single battle wagon, and then he does have a bunch of units that are all over the field. And then, of course, the Lootas can actually shoot away Sisters, shoot away the vehicles when they get a chance to actually get involved. Not an easy game. Nonetheless, like typically not an easy game. I mean, like Sisters are like an easy matchup because they do want to meet you in the middle and bang it out sometimes. But if you just get too much momentum early all over across the field at once, you can just diminish them, because even a hurt orc unit can like just delete sister units, because typically sister units are like, oh well, I got a good armor save, and orcs are like, yeah, but I just got a lot of hits, a lot of wounds, so here you go, and you're only one wound, oops, you're dead. So shout out to him for a 90-point win there, and shout out to Nick for his 3-1-1 Dread Mob list, which is pretty much Lootas mixed with 2 bricks of Boyz and a whole bunch of Gretchin with a little bit of flash kit support in a battle wagon. You know, very unique style right there. It is Daka. He did bring Daka here. He has flash kits for shooting, Lootas for shooting, but then he still brought the Boyz, and I like that the Boyz have an actual Big Mek in them, and then one of the other Boyz unit is just a simple Warboss, right? So put it in reserve. You can just kind of have it go out first and try to hope to get stuck in a fight. I like that it wasn't too much over investment. 160 points for a Boyz unit and then a Warboss. A lot of those see a lot of pressure, a lot for enemies to try to like dislodge from a certain side of the battlefield. So I hope to see more of that, where people are just like, I'm fine with bringing a 20-man unit to Boyz and maybe just one character, because you don't always have to pay for a bunch of characters. You could though, of course, give the mech into the Boyz unit when you want to give them the button. Do I think you always want to do it? You know, it depends, right? It depends on what the rest of your list is. But you can also just use the single mech to do actions by himself as well, right? So it's up to you. Do you want to give the button to the Boyz? Well, it depends on the matchup, right? So nonetheless, shout out to Nick Robert Moore for his Dread Mob. Whoa! If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!